Hello. So much going on, so much prophecy just being fulfilled quickly. And it's like if you are not woke or not trying to get woke or seeking or seeing what the heck is going on in this world, then it's really scary, and Satan really has you comfortable, deceived, and just in a delusion. And God will also cause you to stay in a delusion if you are not seeking the truth or seeing what's going on. You know, but the caravans that are coming, everything you have to see spiritual once you become spiritual. So I know some stuff sounds, bizarre to the worldly or fleshly ear, but God right now is still telling me to speak, because there are still some, who are waking, that will understand. But you have to understand that this world that God said he hates because of what it became. And you have to understand God's timing. And it's just God is not us. God is not the flesh. He doesn't think like the flesh, operate the timing. He doesn't operate in feelings, nothing, just spirit and in truth. And it's a reason why he says operate in spirit and in truth, and surrender all of your ways, and don't even think from yourself, because that gets you into a state of thinking from yourself, the flesh, which is not of God. And God always tells me just to give these metaphors, because he is how he is, and that's just how it is. Some things we don't understand, we won't understand, and some things we just can't explain. And a lot of things that he opens you up to on your journey, you can't explain, but it's written in scripture, and God's timing is very different. Prophecy is being fulfilled, that was written in Jesus' days. So it's coming to pass now, like these last days. People are like, this has been going on, that's been going on, this is same. But God is like, spiritual timing is not the same. And if you are in the world, doing worldly things, comfortable, loving anything of the world more than the truth, or more than your soul, more than your feelings, it's a problem. It's a big problem if you don't hate it how God hates it, if you don't view it how God views it. And yes, if you're a babe being woke, certain things, are not, you're not so, like held accountable for them, but you are held accountable. So don't get too lenient, on I didn't know, because I once said those things, But again, prophecy that God spoke of in Jesus' days is happening now. And so this is the last generation, whether people believe or not. But God says, God was speaking of the world, today, as it is now, what it became. And over the years, God is watching, and his will be fulfilled, and things have to come to pass. It has to come to pass. Whether he wants it to come to pass as soon as he sparks the saints' hearts or the followers' hearts to speak it, whether he wants it to come to pass, shortly after he puts it on all of our hearts, because we're one spirit with him, not the world. So we shift different, we move different, we understand different, we think different, and we operate different. But if God's timing isn't right away after he, has a truth spoken, that doesn't mean anything, because again, his timing is not our timing, and so he could have us speaking, like me as a follower, speaking for years, because the disciples back then, they spoke for years and years and years of what's to come. But back then God was striking, because he didn't send Jesus at that point. So he was striking. You play around with some other gods, you mock him, you mock the followers, you mock his truth, anything. He was, But thank God he sent Jesus, you know. But when you're woke, that's still even just a, like, you know, it's all just fearing him and loving him all at the same time. But to know that you're not struck right now, but you're struck later on judgment, that can be a weight on you if you're not walking just in spirit and in truth, you know. But back to the timing again, you know, God clicks the timing, you know. But God has his people speak, and if he wants us to speak on Jesus coming for 3-4 more years, that's God's timing. That doesn't mean he's not coming. What people should look at is the ample time that God has given to be delivered, to be restored, to understand, to grow spiritually, and to see. Then once your eyes are woken and you really see what you're in, and you see from the spirit that's within you and not the corrupt flesh that God said is corrupt, but he keeps it tamed in certain ways, you know. But you begin to see, and then you begin to hate, but then you begin to understand. And then God just, you know, he continues to link you and build you, you know, and then isolate you. So again, you know, people celebrating this holiday stuff, this is God gave Satan this realm. People don't want to hear that truth or believe. God wouldn't give. Y'all better get to knowing all of God's sides and what he allows. And he still allows Satan to test, just like he did with Job. We are tested to the end. We have to endure to the end for a reason. And enduring, when God says, you got common sense when this stuff gets broken down, because people get to acting like, oh no, that ain't that. And God's like, you know, I'm not gonna keep playing games, period. You know, I'm a God of wrath, order, and discipline. But again, if you are running around in this realm and not wanting to be woke, thinking that you just live, you go to pagan church on a pagan Sunday, worshiping, you know, a pagan God, and letting the pastor lead you astray, the love of the Father is not in you, you know, to seek. Now, if you are being woke and seeing these things and praying, that's a whole different, you know, path. But to those that are celebrating, setting up trees, just disrespecting God, if we were back in the times, but that still doesn't take away from his power or who he is or who you are and how you are to walk. You know, if we were back then, there would be no man, you know. God's just sparing and sparing and sparing and sparing and sparing, you know. But people have to understand, you don't conform to this world. Whatever God has you doing, whether it's working in your little office and then going home and you staying isolated with him within and letting him set you free, get rid of your ways, your thoughts, just all that stuff. Works are within. That's what God means when he says faith without works is dead. Within. Just talking to God, talking to Jesus, sitting there with them, fasting, just allowing Jesus to do his works inside, you know. And that could be, you know, you sitting at home, sitting your butt down, not going out, not going around these spirits, these people, this world in the condition that it's in right now, because it's in the last hour and it's principalities that you don't see. Unless God wakes you to these certain things, then you see, you know, then that's when you become slightly more crazy like Jesus was, you know. And it's supposed to be that way. If you're not viewed crazy or this or that, you know, like something's not right. But again, martial law is here. Mark of the beast is here. These little, you know, phone recognitions and them ushering it in, because they know Americans are stupid. They know that people are blinded. They know that people love self, world, money, traditions, their kids growing up in school, their careers, all this stuff that is not getting anybody into heaven. God's like, this is not my will. This is not my will for you to graduate, for you to slave all day in this world and then come think you gonna worship me at the end of the week on Sunday and be fake. You know, that's not God, and that's not his will. You know, and if you really think of how righteous and holy the kingdom is, and how righteous and holy Jesus is and God is, you wouldn't play around with any of this stuff, or be in it, or dare hang up a Christmas tree that mocks the death of Christ. But if you haven't, you know, prayed to seek these things out, for them to be revealed to you, a lot of it is not gonna sound, you know, clear, you know, to your fleshly ears. Just so much, but not so much. But so much because we're at the end and it's just a matter of time, you know. And again, these past few years, you know, it's been hard, because I see and I understand, but then you still have your flesh, and it feels good, it feels right, and that's how Satan gets you, you know. So you have to surrender, you have to isolate. That's the best thing, you know. You have to see spiritually through this, because once it happens, boom, it's already too late, you know. And God's not gonna hear cries, he's not gonna hear anything. And he says this in the word, you have to understand, he says this. And God he's so scary, but he's so mighty, he's so loving, and everything he does, you know, taking you away from people, places, things, yourself, he does it all to save you, because you don't want to be stuck in this world any longer than you have to. You don't want to be stuck in the world knowing truth, because that's what's gonna for sure kill you. And God tells us many are not gonna make it in great tribulation. We're approaching great tribulation now. We're approaching it. It hasn't hit. God shows me so much martial law, so many people I've reached out to. He'll show me specifically, you know, warnings for them to isolate, you know, so he can do what he needs to do on his end. But people are lovers of self, lovers of the world, even their children, you know. God don't care about none of that. Whatever he tells you to do on your path, you do. But you ought to worship him in spirit and truth. Jesus Christ, the Savior, who is coming. This is not great tribulation, people. What you see in California, what you see in these other places, this is just the beginning of it. And do you see that there are people driving and dying, being burned to death, praying to God? He's not sparing them. You have to obey. Now is the time to watch. Now is the time to isolate and fully surrender, because God's not playing. And he's not just all love. Yes, he loves us, but he's not just all love. He does not need us. He does not need us. And this is some truth, boy, that'll hit your soul, but it builds you and it makes you want to make it out and do the things that you need to do in the spirit to make it out. Okay? Because God don't care, boy, but you have to be in his will, and he'll orchestrate it however he needs to orchestrate it, whether you're in a house and you work a little job, or whether, like me, you're out in the wilderness, you're out in your car, you're out as a real disciple, and you can't depend on nothing but faith and who God sends with a good heart, because he will send people. But you don't let everybody know your moves or your plans or all that. Satan works, and God allows him to. God allows Satan. So you better know the many sides that God has. He's still the same God. He's just sparing. He's sparing. And on the other hand, he's writing down, recording. Because on Judgment Day, he's going to bring everything up, boy. You know, so again, you have to wake out of the world. You can't just keep going to these churches if your churches are not preaching and teaching of